All right, let me walk you through this process here. The first thing that we need to do, obviously, is we need to launch ArcGIS Pro. And then we're going to start a brand new map. And I'm simply going to call this map, or this project actually, Real-Time GIS. I'm going to navigate to a location on my hard drive where I want this project stored. And I'm going to put this on my C drive. And because this is a workshop, I'm going to put this project on the C temp. Now in practice, I do not recommend that you put anything important at all on your C temp. And that is because the temp folder is designed for temporary files. And there are plenty of sysadmins who routinely will delete everything inside the C temp just to do a little bit of file management and keep the computer as clean as possible. So this is the folder I want to be in, and I'm going to tell it to create a new folder for this project. Now this new folder is going to be a subfolder in the C temp, and that new folder will be called Real-Time GIS. The new project has been created and a new map has been launched for me automatically. I'm now going to visit Arc Catalog, and for the workshop I'm going to pin down these panes, the catalog pane. Now again, in practice I normally auto hide this to give myself as much real estate as possible. However, when I'm teaching classes or workshops, I pin it down so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better, and if I move my mouse around, it doesn't disappear on you. So I'm going to expand the databases section, and you'll notice that we have already for us a Geodatabase created with the same name as the project. Now this is very much standard operating procedures for ArcGIS Pro. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up this Geodatabase. And the first part here is where I need to create a brand new feature class. So I'm right-clicking on the Geodatabase. This happens to be my default or home Geodatabase. I'm clicking on New. This little flyout comes out, flyout menu, and now I'm going to select New Feature Class. And now in this version of ArcGIS Pro, this Create Feature Class pane appears, sort of like a normal geoprocessing pane, but it's a wizard with numerous steps. And so what I need to do is give this thing a name, and I'm going to name this Restaurants. Whoops. Okay. Now you do not have to apply an alias to this, but you certainly can if you want to. The feature class type here is going to be point. So we're going to be collecting points to represent restaurants. And I'm not going to be storing either M or Z values with my restaurants. So now I'm going to click Next. Now on the second page here, what we're going to do is we're going to be identifying various different fields or attributes that we want our restaurants feature class to contain. One of the fields that I'm interested in is, I'll capitalize this, a field that I'm calling restaurant type. Okay? Now, this is all fine. I'm going to make a little note here to you that the actual field name could be shorter than this. It doesn't have to be, but what we might want to do is use the full word restaurant type as the alias, but the field name perhaps could be simply type. Now the data type for this field is not going to be text, but rather it's going to be short integer. I like to use short integers as much as possible because they obviously occupy as little space on the hard drive, and since this is going to be a web service ultimately, it then will perform the best because there's smaller amounts of data packets that need to be transferred and moved across the internet. Well, the other advantage, of course, for the short integer is I can easily apply what's called a coded value attribute domain, and we're going to do that so that the end user doesn't see the numbers 1 and 2 and 3, but rather the end user, which could be you in the field, the end user then would see things like fast food, family style, buffet, whatever it happens to be. Okay? So now I'm going to come down here to the field properties for the type field, and I'm going to enter in restaurant type. Now the alias is really free-form text. We can use spaces here as much as we want. We want to make this very readable to the end user, and that's an important consideration. The field name itself, the actual field name, cannot have spaces in it, and we have to be careful if we're ever using any sort of non-standard keyboard characters. So kind of avoid special keys in the name, the actual name of the field. Okay, I'm now going to return and add another field in here. I'm going to call this one my rating. This one is also going to be a short integer, not because I'm going to necessarily make it into a coded value attribute domain, but I can do that, but simply because maybe my rating is 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, 4, whatever like that. And so all I want is numbers being stored there. Another one is cost rating. And this again is short integer. Notes. Now notes, I like to put these into a lot of these sorts of data collection applications because you never know when someone out in the field says, oh, I'd like to add this little note about this feature that I'm looking at right now, but geez, there's no way to do it. I sure wish there was some way just to make a little note about this. Well, here we go. We're going to allow a little note to be made over here. It is going to be text, but I don't want it to be the default 255 characters. Instead, I simply want it to be 25 characters. I am going to apply an alias here, and I'm just going to call it my notes. Spelled out sort of like that. And then I'm going to apply one more, or create one more field, and it's going to be called date time. And you might guess this, the data type is going to be a date data type. Now when you're doing collector for ArcGIS applications like we're doing today, whenever you use the date field, or whenever you can use the date field, try to make use of that, because those Android and iOS devices they're kind of smart, right? They're smartphones, smart devices, and if they ever see, if those apps identify, and the collector app I'm talking about in particular, if they identify that this is a data type field, well then automatically you're going to have the option to simply click today, a button that says today, or a button that says now, or something like that. Maybe it'll even pull out a calendar, pop up a calendar for you. And it makes data entry so much easier. And so now I'm going to go down here. I am going to apply an alias to make this a little bit more readable again. Date/time. Maybe that's just a little bit better. Okay, that's the fields that I want to include. Now I'm going to click on next. Don't click finish yet. Click next. And it's asking us for the projection, or really the spatial reference that this new feature class is going to be stored in. And by default, when we are doing Collector for ArcGIS applications, it does work best using WGS84 Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere. So this is cool. We'll go ahead and accept this default. And now I'm going to click Next once again. The tolerance, this is a good default tolerance, not a problem there. Click Next one more time. I'm going to accept all the default resolutions and domain extents. Again, click on Next. We are now on the final page looking at configuration keywords and so on. Now, just talk a little bit about this. I'll actually pull up this About Configuration Keywords here. Integrated links between ArcGIS Pro and the web-based links to help you understand things. And really, when we're dealing with file-based geodatabases, these sorts of applications, really no reason to do anything except the default. If you are going to end up storing this application or this geodatabase on a data store or an ArcSDE type of application, then this makes a whole lot more sense to take a look at this. But what we're doing today, and in most applications, and especially Collector for ArcGIS stuff and the file geodatabase, don't worry about any of this stuff. Just accept the default configuration, and now we can click Finish. There we go. I'm going to expand my database now, and I do see that our restaurants feature class has been created. We're now done with part 1. It was that easy.